Hi, I'm Jeffery Scott Campbell and I'm going to draw Spider-Gwen. When I start off the figure, I do that thing you've probably seen on many different art tutorials, I'm sure online, where you start off with the oval shape. This is still kind of how I draw most of my figures. I usually carry down the jawline. Again, just kind of give the gesture, get the overall energy, the shape going. I tend to default a lot of times when I'm drawing portraits, especially female portraits, to tip the head down a bit. There's just something appealing about sort of a head slightly tipped down, and also this is what we call a three-quarter shot, where it's not quite dead on and it's not quite a profile. You get a little bit of a head turn. I also tend to build the neck shape in, kind of get as much of the gesture shape in as I can in advance. I usually go from there to the eyes. This is just, again, just more the eye, general eye shape, the sockets, that sort of thing. This far eye usually has more of a little less of a profile. This is a little more rounder, so it's the idea that it's sloping around the head there. People have often thought that, or have approached me and said, oh, you must be really into anime. And while I appreciate some anime, I think what they're seeing is a classic Disney influence with the bigger eyes and that sort of thing. I've always been a big Disney fan and actually thought at one point I was going to be an animator before comic books sort of swept me away. In fact, actually my early days of drawing comic books, I felt I was bringing a sort of Disney look to a lot of the characters I was drawing, and I think that kind of allowed me to have a little bit of a breakaway from a lot of the traditional comic book look. I think I brought something that was a little different by merging those two worlds. I think that's kind of given me an appeal that sometimes even exceeded outside of the comic book realm. All right, so we're doing a smile here, especially characters like Spider-Gwen smiling and sort of very appealing looking in that friendly sort of way. Usually I tend to draw using the H lead and the F lead. H is a little harder, F is a little softer, but becomes a little darker and a little harder to erase once you get into that erasing stage. So you have to kind of pick your battles between those two. But those are kind of my two go-tos. And I also like to ink usually with these kind of pins here too that you guys have on set here. These Micron Pigma pins. These are really good. I also like something called Faber-Castell. Those are kind of my go-to. I like to ink with markers actually, even though comic books have traditionally been done with brush and pen and Croquill. I just find I'm a little too impatient for that. So now we're going to go to ink here. I'm going to kind of, let's see, I usually start off with the eyes. The eyes, if you don't get the eyes right, the whole thing kind of falls apart. So you got to make sure you get that part right. But I find eyes and hands are a big part of getting your drawing right. There's just so much detail and expression and life that comes into the eyes. The face in general, but definitely the eyes and the fingers and the hands are really crucial to kind of get the expressiveness of a figure onto the page. So, and usually with the eyes, I'll try to get like a bit of a additional sparkle. I'll usually throw in like little highlights from fake lights or the sun or something that's in the area. You got to make sure it matches on both sides too, otherwise it looks a little strange. Another cheat that I tend to do is if you commit to the character looking either one of the two sides, it's much easier to line up the eyes. When they're looking right at the viewer, that's when you get into the trouble spot of it looking a little cross-eyed. You want to definitely try to avoid that. And we got the little eyelid there. I tend to do the eyelashes as like one big sort of swooping shape. It kind of gives it a nice like eyeliner kind of look to it. Rather than giving all the individual eyelashes, I like it to be kind of like a big sort of unified shape. And then the under eyelid, I tend to let it kind of just fade out right around there because I kind of think the light would catch it in such a way where you wouldn't really complete the eyelash in that inner part of the eye. And now I'm just kind of throwing in the eyebrows. People have said I have a pretty distinctive, recognizable way I do eyebrows, which I always think is interesting when they point that out. And now we'll work on the nose here. Sometimes especially since I'm kind of known for drawing female characters especially, it's kind of a fan favorite. And usually with female faces, especially young ones like Spider-Gwen here, it's sometimes about what you don't draw more than what you draw, because you don't want to weigh her down with lines. It'll kind of give her a more aged look. So Whereas the male characters, sometimes all that grit and sort of like tenseness in their face is ideal. You definitely want to avoid that with the female characters, especially a youthful one like Gwen. And we'll give her like, I usually try to avoid giving her dimples because that's more of a Mary Jane kind of thing, and you don't want to do that. All right, we'll get the smile going here. You can see it's starting to come together here now. Sometimes what I'll do too, because my work is primarily line art and I hand it off to a colorist, I'll often indicate things like a little lip shine here or a little shine on the end of the nose. It's kind of a little iconic trait that gives her just a little bit of an extra sparkle. Sometimes I'll even throw a little freckles in or something just to make the nose a little bit cuter. And now we'll kind of frame out the head. We're kind of on the home stretch now. Once we get those details in the face done, it all kind of starts to come together pretty fast here. I usually will sometimes do the chin and the cheekbone and then kind of get a feel for where I want the face to sort of reach out to. Again, with a youthful face like Gwen, you don't want the cheek to be too tight to the face. Sometimes that kind of angularity makes her look a little bit more mature, but a little bit of a roundness to the cheek gives her a little bit more of that youthful look we're going for. I'm going to switch up the pins and go to something a little thicker to kind of start the hood here. Spider-Gwen typically wears a white mask with Spider-Man type eyes. And I do like that look, but I don't know, it's hard for me not to draw her with her mask off. I just find her face too appealing to not do that. So you'll often find my Spider-Gwens that are on covers without the mask. She's usually holding it in her hands or something like that. At this point, you can kind of start to see a little bit of the Disney influence that's in my work. This could almost be Sleeping Beauty from the 1950s if I was to just keep going another direction. A little shadow under the chin just to give the head, pop the head forward a little bit. I also tend to, somebody was asking me today at the convention, how do you do hair? I tend to think of hair almost like whipped cream. It's like, I don't think of it as individual hairs. I almost think of this as like something I just sprayed on. It just kind of, it's like whipped into shape in some sort of weird way. And I find it gives it a fluffy, light, kind of animation kind of look. So that tends to be my approach to hair, especially blonde hair like she has. I think we're pretty much close to being done here. I probably dropped a little shadow under the nose. Again, little shadows, spotting black anywhere, whether it's eyelashes or shadows under the noses, that sort of thing. It always helps pop your art forward. At this point, I'll just kind of give a light erase. My holding lines, you can kind of see it kind of coming together there. There we are. I'm J. Scott Campbell, and this here is Spider-Gwen.